Hey, and welcome to this very special episode of the Transatlantic Entrepreneur Podcast. This episode's going to be a little bit different because it is going to be more of a personal update, let's say, but also something that I want to share with you, as part of the journey that we are building together, let's say. So, maybe you have been following this podcast since the beginning of it, maybe about a year ago. I have to check the exact date, and it's always been in English. But maybe if you're listening to this, your native language is not English. Actually, your native language probably is not English. If you're listening to this, it's probably, I'm going to guess, there's a good chance that your native language is French. Now, I know that some of you listening, you may be German or Spanish or Italian, but, I noticed that 90%, probably more of my audience is French. 99% of my clients are definitely French. And that means that, as I explained in the newsletter, I've been doing a little bit of research, thinking very strategically. And as of the next real episode of this podcast coming out this Thursday, the podcast, the videos are going to continue, but they will be in French, which means that you will hear my accent when I speak French. Now, a little bit of a background and to explain, the how and the why of this change. I've been creating content on YouTube for like 10 years now, which is half of the time that YouTube has existed, which now I feel really old. But you can go back, you can watch those original videos if you want a good laugh because they're so terrible. But anyway, I've been always created content in English, and I've been publishing on LinkedIn in English, but for the past year or so, I actually switched just my LinkedIn into French because I wanted to test it out. And like I explained in the newsletter, what I saw was more visibility, more engagement, more inbound inquiries about how to work with me. It just seems now that it makes sense for everything else to go that way, the podcast and the video as well, and the newsletter, because I felt that there was a bit of a disconnect between doing the videos and the podcast in English and doing my LinkedIn, which is the network where I am the most present, doing that in French. Now, I have been doing it in English for a long time. I would say because, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I think when we launch something new, we don't want to exclude anybody. We want to, try to go not as large as possible, but we want to go a bit larger in order to try to touch more people. But, over time, I would say that, like I said, I've just looked at the numbers. It's becoming clearer and clearer that the entrepreneurs and the companies that work with me are French. And it means that if we just look at it from a business perspective, that is where my core audience is. And when you have a business, you really want to, I would say, go where your audience, where your community and where your clients are. And today, clearly, that means that they are in France or in other French speaking countries. Now, this, I would say, I wanted to practice what I preach in the sense when I tell people when they're going into the US market, we have got to get laser focused on who is your audience in the US market. And yes, that's going to exclude some people and you're going to be very narrow, at least to begin with. And that means that I wanted, to follow my own advice, basically. So does that mean that I'm maybe cutting myself off from certain entrepreneurs in other countries in Europe who do not speak French? Yes, that is going to be the reality of it. But the other reality, and I feel like this is maybe the stronger reality, is that, if I am honest, I know French culture. I've been living here for 20 years. I speak the language fluently. I was married to a French guy for 12 years. And I have that knowledge of the French culture that I wouldn't have for other European countries, German culture, Italian culture, Dutch culture, which are all cultures that I'm very interested in, but I just don't have that deep knowledge of those cultures like I do of French culture. And that means that really the value that I can bring is being able to point out the very specific differences between French culture, French business practices. I mean, I've created my business here in France and deal with French clients every day. And so I know what those differences are going to be compared to, my own native culture, which is in the US, and being able to point that out very specifically, to literally speak the language of my clients. That means that if you're a French entrepreneur, I'm going to bring you a lot more value than I would if you were a German entrepreneur or an Austrian entrepreneur or Spanish or whatever. So that's kind of the reasoning behind it, beyond the just the numbers that we looked at in the newsletter. But there's also maybe a more, I guess, a personal reason, although I don't believe that business decisions should be made based on personal whims or feelings. I mean, that is important, but then you also have to look at the data and look at the numbers before you make that decision. And that's what we did is looked at the visibility, the engagement, where are clients coming from, where are the best clients coming from. And they do tend to come from French speaking countries. But then if I go into a more personal level, like I said, I've lived here for 20 years. All of my friends pretty much are French. The clients that I work with, they are French, and I love what they do and the businesses that they're building and the determination and the drive that they have to succeed. Like, I'm in the process of getting my French nationality as well. And all of that to say that, I really, really, really want to see French entrepreneurs and French businesses go and succeed in the American market so that they can, just show the world the excellence that we have here in France. I mean, I know a lot of people like to do French bashing and things like that. France is not perfect. The US is definitely not perfect. But when it comes down to it, the US market is where things happen. And that's still true today. And it will be true in 3 or 4 years. Like, I have no doubt about that. So what my goal really is to say, you know what? I've been living here in France, loving it ever since the start, still loving it. And I want to see these French entrepreneurs and these French businesses go and get the success that they deserve. And that's going to happen in the US market if you're looking to get to a certain scale. And so that is the mission that I'm giving myself. It's, like I said, maybe the more personal reason for switching everything into French, starting later this week. But again, like I said, it's also come from looking at the numbers, the data, analyzing our business, and knowing that where we're going to bring the most value is going to be helping French companies, French entrepreneurs. Of course, if you're not French and you can understand French and you can follow, I mean, like, I'm not discriminating. It just means that the content is going to be in French, and that's how it'll be accessible. So looking forward to it. Now, I don't know if this is the right decision with everything when you're building a business. Everything you do is a little bit of an experiment. It's a little trial and error. We make mistakes. I could be making a mistake here, but where it is today and what I see, this is something that I feel like is the right direction. Time will tell, but I am going to give myself, I think, 3, maybe 6, but minimum 3 months to test this out before making any kind of decision. So I just wanted to let you know that so that you know what's happening. You know why next, this coming Thursday, the episode, the newsletter, everything will be in French. I hope that you will continue this journey with me. If you do not speak French, and you want some help, this is the time to send me a message and let me know, and we can work personally. Of course, if you're French and French speaking and you want to work with me personally, let me know as well. But we'll see what happens. I just wanted to let you know, give you an update, because it is quite a big change, and we'll see if it's the right change, but I feel like it is the right change right now.